Dallas investor, restaurateur, and GOP fundraising powerhouse Ray Washburne is trying to help U.S. companies invest in troubled spots around the world, and he has billions of dollars at his disposal. Ray Washburne is the head of the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, the U.S. development finance institution, and he recently returned from a trip to India with Ivanka Trump and now is turning his focus to South America. Ray, thanks for coming on.
Good. Thank you for having me.
All right. So where are your priorities as we enter into this new year, and what can the private sector do to help OPIC?
Well, our priorities as OPIC going into 2018 are pretty much the Western Hemisphere, the Northern Triangle of Central America. We're looking very much in the Indo-Pacific region, Middle East, and many of the former Soviet countries, as well as Sub-Saharan Africa, where we've been very active. OPIC's open in 108 countries, so we're really looking worldwide, but we're giving a specific emphasis on Central and the Western Hemisphere.
The Trump administration at one point envisioned closing down your agency. How much support are you now getting from the White House?
Well, thank you for that question, because I get that all the time. When I was asked to take this job, that's the question I had for the administration was, how do you look at development agencies that are so important to our foreign policy objectives? And once we had many discussions about it, President Trump and his administration have given us great support, and we're very pleased with that. So I was willing to accept the job. I went to my confirmation hearing with Senate Foreign Relations, and then once we hit the ground running in August, we've had the full support of the administration. I traveled with the president on his Asia trip. We did a historic memorandum of understanding with the Japanese government with their equivalent called JBIC, which we're going to get very involved in developing Indo-Pacific projects with. And then I went to Vietnam and signed an agreement with President Trump and the president of Vietnam in attendance for a large LNG plant near Ho Chi Minh City.
Well, so, to follow up on that, because in just a couple of weeks, the White House is going to put out its funding levels. It's going to have their budget requests. What are you looking for in this new budget? And are we going to see any changes in this new year budget?
As far as OPIC's concerned, OPIC has authority to do, we have about $29 billion of authority, which is on our books.
Wow. We
get a allocation to operate between 65 and 70 billion this year. So OPIC's looking for a $70 million allocation. Last fiscal year, we made a profit, which in government accounting talk is deficit reduction of $268 million. So for a $70 million investment, they get back 270. It's a pretty good investment for the American taxpayer.
The Trump administration also pushed back against the Inter-American Development Bank last week for allowing China's influence to grow in Latin America. When it comes to doing your job, how does China's growing influence in these regions compete with you when you're trying to get American businesses to expand their work there?
Well, the Chinese have committed $1 trillion to their development agency. We've got $29 billion. So they've got a few more dollars to throw around than we do. But we are focused on American business. The way OPIC works is we have to have a U.S. nexus of a business to go to a country. Let's say they were going to go to El Salvador. It has to be a U.S. company, whereas the Chinese will go in and they put an immense amount of debt on projects that really don't have any chance of working in the end. So we bump into the Chinese pretty much everywhere we go. That's why we have done our memorandum of understanding with the Japanese government. We work very much with the IFC and other development agencies, trying to stretch our dollars out further to be able to compete.
When you try to stretch those dollars out to compete, I mean, do you think President Trump likes and values the idea of soft power through programs like OPIC, or do you think that he would rather have no foreign aid?
Well, remember, OPIC is not an aid program. We've made a profit for 40 years in a row. And whereas a lot of aid agencies just give money, we get paid back. And we've had less than a 1% default rate since we started in 1971. And so we have very strict underwriting. There's a tremendous amount of equity to go into our projects. We're spread worldwide, very diverse. And so the administration looks at us not as an aid agency, as an economic development assistance that makes money.